Welcome to the Collectability podcast. My name is Tania Edwards. And before we get started, I just want to ask a quick favour. Please like and press the subscribe button now so that you don't miss any future episodes. We really appreciate your support. Thank you. Today, I am delighted to welcome Angelina Chen, a senior jewellery specialist, to talk about why Patek ladies' watches can be important pieces of jewellery as well as great watches to wear. And she is the perfect person to explain this, in fact, because we met a few years ago when we both worked at Christie's, and she is here to explain why there is so much more to Patek Philippe ladies' watches. So before we get started, I just want to do a quick bio. Angelina is something of a Renaissance woman. She has a BA in journalism and an MBA in finance, as well as being a graduate gemologist and a certified appraiser. For 25 years, she worked for various auction houses, first as a business manager in the watch and jewellery departments of Sotheby's and Phillips. And I believe, was that when you met John Reardon?
Correct. John Reardon, a young John Reardon.
A young John Reardon, yes. That's how he was when I first met him.
But his passion was there, even then.
Even then?
Oh.
Okay, wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. Angelina then combined her business acumen with becoming a jewellery specialist, first at Circa and then at Christie's, where she started and created the hugely successful online auction jewellery division. She later became responsible for the acquisition of property for the marquee auctions in the magnificent jewellery department. Angelina is married and spends her time between homes in New York City and Singapore. So welcome, Angelina.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm getting used to this incredibly warm weather in New York. I'm getting ready to go to Singapore again.
I know. Well, you're going to go from one fire into another fire, basically, aren't you?
Yes, for sure.
Yes. Well, Angelina, I'm so excited to have you here today because for my entire career in the watch industry, mostly related to selling Patek Philippe watches, it has been a challenge to sell fine timepieces to women. Now, don't get me wrong, we do have incredible female collectors at Patek who are absolutely on par with the top male collectors. But we're not talking about really collecting. We're talking about just enjoying wearing a fine timepiece. And that's something I just want to speak to you today about. And so I've bought quite a big selection of watches that we can explain different types of watches that people can wear and why they're different, why they're more fun or easy to wear and what kind of place you could wear them to. Although what I like to think is that I can wear my watches anywhere, but we'll talk about that later. So first of all, let's just talk about women and fine watches. I mean, this has been a debate that's gone on, certainly for my entire career. And watches are seen generally, and I'm just speaking very generally, as being something for men. Because men don't have accessories like we do. We have jewelry, we have handbags, we have other things. How do you see them?
Totally wrong. First of all, we need to tell the time as well.
We do.
Absolutely important. And I think it starts from the very beginning, the perception. So what you were saying about women not thinking of it, and I think perhaps it starts earlier than that. Oh. I remember that getting an important watch was a big deal.
Yes.
When I turned 16, I got my first little Seiko Quartz watch, which I loved and adored, which got stolen, but that's another story. But then the next milestone was college graduation. You get another watch, and so on and so forth. So for me, it was always something important, something that finishes an outfit. I don't go out without wearing a watch till this very day. And it's only in recent years that I stopped wearing a watch to bed.
To bed, really?
Yeah. Yes, it's really strange. I feel that I'm not put together unless I wear a watch.
Well, I happen to agree with you there, obviously.
Right. If you can fortunately, this is a podcast, and you can't see that I'm in shorts and sneakers. But then
because it's very hot in New York at the moment.
Very warm in New York. But then I will wear a watch when I go out. And today I opted to wear a quartz watch because I'm about to travel, and it's just too difficult to fiddle around sometimes with a lot of time zone differences and all that. But I will wear a watch. And I think women need to think about, instead of, putting on the bangle, you can put on the bangle and the watch together.
Right, exactly. Now, it's interesting that you brought up quartz timepiece because it's often thought that women just want quartz because they're not interested in watches, so they don't need a mechanical watch. Well, first and foremost, I don't agree with that. But secondly, I do think that quartz watches are perfectly fine. I happen to be wearing a quartz watch myself today.
Absolutely.
And we have some quartz watches here. It's actually, and again, this sounds so sexist, which I hate, but I'm going to have to say it. Quartz watches are very practical for women. If you're traveling a lot and you're wearing a watch to match whatever you're wearing, you want to put something on quickly and you don't have to worry about changing the time. But also, and I'm just going to be very honest here today, ladies and gentlemen, this is the most gorgeous Gilbert Albert. It's actually a pocket watch that was turned by Patek into a little pendant piece, and I couldn't change the time this morning without because I didn't want to risk breaking
the nail. That's right.
So there you go. There is an advantage to having a quartz timepiece, and you don't have to worry about breaking your nails.
Yes.
Anyway,
I've seen watch collectors, and I've had the pleasure of working with a few when I was doing appraising work and all that, Christie's, where there's a slight sneer to quartz watch.
Yes.
And there shouldn't be, because there's a time and a place for it. I used to own a Patek 5054.
Beautiful watch, an officer's campaign watch, is that correct?
Correct. In white gold. I'm embarrassed to say I could never quite set the moon phase correctly.
Well,
so
that is a trial because you've got to keep going.
Correct.
Turning.
So when I traveled, I used to bring that, and because I would like to switch watches with certain outfits and all that. It is an accessory. I don't care what people say. For me, it is anyway. And it always sometimes would be wrong. And John, I remember John, I said, "Would you like me to set that for you?" It's like, no, it's okay, John. And it's not. I don't think quartz versus not quartz is sexist. I think it's just maybe it's the mechanics of it. People don't like to play with the mechanics of it or something, but I find it very intriguing and interesting. I like to see, I have a little power reserve, and I love to say that.
Yes. So how long is it going to, when you wind it up, how long is it going to last?
Correct.
So, yes, well, I mean, today we're going to look at lots of different sized watches, which I think is really one of the things that opens up wearing watches for women to this huge portfolio of options. And but just before we start looking, I just want to ask you, many women feel comfortable investing in fine jewelry. You know that's been your area for a long time, but less confident in exploring watches. What advice would you give to helping women make that first step into investing in a watch? Now, I'm going to ask you. I'm sorry before you even answer it. I'm going to ask you to relate it to what you did with the online jewelry business, because then I'm assuming you opened up jewelry to a lot more people, didn't you, by doing that?
Yes, I did. Most people, this would be the first time, when I started the online platform in the auction houses where we do deal with very, very rarefied products.
Certainly in the magnificent
there were certain things that they didn't want to put online. So, for example, even today, there are certain brands that will not, fashion brands that don't like to sell online. Unless it's through a store like Saks or Bergdorf. And even then, they control the amount or the type of product that sell online. They'll sell sunglasses, but they won't sell their bags online. So there is that. But once when I started that online auction, we tried a lot of things. We started with Georges L'Enfant.
Georges L'Enfant.
Very esoteric maker. I remember this was, maybe, 10 years ago.
I wish I'd known.
Yeah. And we were worried that, good God, will anybody know? Well, there's so much information out there. The people who knew. And the people who didn't know were curious enough. And there was always a little write-up at the end, which I used to do when I started that platform about who the maker is and why it's important and all that. And that piece did really, really well. So with each sale, we put in more specialized items, and it's shocking. They sell $2 million, $3 million pieces online now.
Well, which is certainly not how things
so
started.
If you are starting to acquire important watches, there's a lot of information out there. But I would assume that you know about jewelry. You work with a good retailer as well.
Yes.
And there is in America, I'm not sure about Europe, but in Asia, they have very specialized watch retailers. Right here in America, the brands themselves have some standalone places, but it's only the best top-level retailers who will have the ability to stock brands like Patek and Rolexes.
Right, there's very few retailers that can actually do that.
Correct,
yes,
there's very few. And this is where you start your education. There's a lot of forum like this that you can talk about, and I'm sure people can reach out to you to find out more about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, Angelina, this is all about, I mean, collectability, we're all about education. We feel that it's absolutely essential that the more that people know about these timepieces, the more comfortable they'll feel owning and acquiring one. So again, we now want to try and explain that, help women understand why watches are just as important as going online and looking for jewelry because they see something that they love. And I think that's the number one point. Wouldn't you agree? That you want to see something that you think is beautiful, I must have that.
Right.
I mean, I know that's how I buy.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not buying because technically I know this is an important piece, and don't get me wrong, I will do that. But on watches that I wear every day, I buy them because I love them and I just want to wear them and enjoy them.
You want the shape.
I want the shape. I want the experience of wearing it. It's a tactile thing.
Absolutely. I think at one point I said something really inane, and I thought, God, I sound like a spoiled rich brat, but I'm not. But I want a different type of watch for various different occasions, and sometimes I'd get different shapes.
Different shapes. We're going to look at some shape watches today. Absolutely.
And different looks.
And different looks.
I thought,
yes.
Why don't people buy watches? You know, you're probably asking the wrong person for this podcast, because I am very interested in watches in some way. So I should give you the reverse of your argument. I should be arguing with you.
No, I don't want you to argue. I'd love you to argue, but I'm just saying this is why we wanted you to be here today for this discussion, because it's wonderful to sit with somebody who does understand watches, does understand jewelry, because there's two arguments about ladies' watches. One is that they're men's watches that are just made to look smaller, which in many instances is true, but not always. And today we're going to explain why that's not always true. And secondly, that they're pieces of jewelry. I've got jewelry. I don't need to have a jeweled watch. And we'd also like to show some jeweled watches and explain why they're just as lovely to have as a piece of jewelry.
Well, lead the way. I think watches, the great thing about watches is it's fairly, I don't want to use the word unisex because it's so dated. I think it's sex agnostic in some way, like a tuxedo jacket.
Yes, absolutely.
I own a tuxedo jacket. It really dresses you up.
Yes, and you feel just as confident and
correct,
smart and put together.
And a man looks amazing. And a man looks amazing
Absolutely.
in a tuxedo jacket as well. So if you look at these watches here, they're not overtly feminine, neither are they overtly masculine. You can tell maybe by the size.
By the size.
A man
but when we get here, we will get to this tray of strap watches. We have here a mixture of men's and women's watches made for men, watches made for women. But that totally disappears when you actually put something on your wrist. So size doesn't matter. But let's start historically.
Okay.
And we have here the oldest piece that we have at the moment at Collectability, which is this absolutely gorgeous little pendant timepiece. And it can actually be worn either as a brooch. It's fitted to be a brooch right now, or you can take off this fleur-de-lis and wear it how I'm wearing my little pendant piece today as a necklace. So this was made around the 1890s, and I think that what's important about this piece, and Angelina, maybe you can talk a little bit more about the jewellery in it, is that it was made at a time, Patek has always made watches for women since the day it started in 1839. And then wristwatches were not invented. So the only way that you could wear a watch was either as a pocket watch, which is how men wore their watches, or for women as either a pendant on their dress or a necklace. And so there was always a difference, if you like, between the way that men and women wore their watches from the very beginning.
Correct.
And then more recently, in the last few decades, it's merged more into what was the word you used? Not unisex. What did you say?
Sex agnostic.
Sex agnostic. That sounds very politically correct.
Isn't it? I think so. And because unisex will date me, right? But yeah, it's beautifully made, very feminine with the addition of diamonds and all that. And then I think since time immemorial, you know, if you want to make something feminine, you throw in a few diamonds.
You throw in a few diamonds. That's always the argument. But
yeah.
From the very beginning, these were expensive timepieces.
Yes.
So they were seen as pieces of jewellery because of that reason, because of their price point. But as you can see on this one, you can tell the time. It does actually have an exquisite enamel dial on the back. And one of the things that we love about these very old pieces is the value for money that they present.
Absolutely.
First of all, you've got a cloisonné enamel, which is extremely hard to do, extremely rare. Patek does still do it, but it is an extremely expensive form of decoration. Obviously, they're using beautiful diamonds. They always do. But the dial is made of enamel, and dials are no longer made of enamel because they're too delicate. They crack.
Yes.
And you know that well. And but what's so lovely about these very old Patek Philippe pieces is that more often than not, the enamel is in perfect condition because they were always valuable, precious objects. And I love that these pieces were so cherished and respected.
So what's interesting here with what you're wearing and this is typically, if you do choose to wear this as a chain, you will see the fleur-de-lis outside.
And you won't see the face.
You won't see the face. And when you need to tell the time, what you do,
you just turn it.
Yes. Like I think Victorian nurses used to do that. They used to wear a little timepiece, maybe post-Victorian, First World War.
Right.
First World War. Nurses needed a timepiece.
Yes.
And so that's what they'll do. They'll flip it up. And so that's how you protect the face.
And that's how you'll see it.
Yeah, that's how you see it. And this is great. I mean, for a young modern woman, this is what I would do. If I want something precious and unusual, I would buy a gold, a nice gold chain and wear it. And a gold chain so that I could wear it up here as well.
Yes.
Because that's nice with the collar.
Yes, with a collar. Very pretty. Very pretty. Yeah, so this is you look at this and you think, oh, this is some old antique. What would I do with that? But you've just explained. You can make it modern by putting it on a chain.
Absolutely.
A long chain or a shorter chain. And it's an exquisite piece. And it's an intriguing piece that people will what are you wearing?
It's one of a kind. It's not run of the mill. And I think what's happening in the marketplace too is a lot of the big brands keep producing the same thing, and you want to stand out and be different.
You want to be different, and I think that that's the key thing. That's why we really want to try and explain, looking back at vintage watches and how you can look different. So let's move into the 1940s. Why not? 1940s, 1950s. I'm going to pull this tray up between us so that we can share. Now, I hope you can see what we're looking at here. We're looking at a group of watches that are very small. And in fact, I'm going to start with this one, which is a really gorgeous, it's called a bubble watch.
Yes.
And Angelina, could you maybe explain why it's called a bubble watch?
Well, it's the sapphire, isn't it?
The sapphire crystal.
The sapphire crystal it's a little bubble watch, and you probably can tell me a little bit more why it's called a bubble watch. I love
it was just a style.
Yeah,
it was a style. It was a style from that period, and it's also reflected in the bracelet with the design, with the curvature of
the curvature of it. It's
the
very. Chain. I think it's still very wearable today.
But it is, isn't it? Put it on your wrist and let's see the size of it.
Right. Look,
Gorgeous.
Right?
Yes,
and it would go well with my my bangle.
Absolutely perfect with your bangle. Yes.
And I like these gold straps these days because it's very jewel-like. Everybody loves to wear a gold bracelet.
Yes, and
but you can wear a watch as well, and it's so interesting. I love the feel of it as well, which is important.
Tactile,
and I think people forget that.
Yes. No, they do. And I think that's something that's very important, isn't it, with watches, is that it is a tactile experience when you hold and feel one. And from the same sort of period, now we're going into a cocktail watch here. Again, teeny tiny. The dial is probably about 8 millimeters, so really small.
Precious. So here's the thing. I don't know why people have such a problem wearing diamonds.
Yes.
Right. Because these days, as I was talking to you about what's trending in jewelry, is they like to wear smaller little lines of diamonds.
Like a little, much smaller tennis bracelet type thing, that sort of thing.
So this goes perfectly well with that.
Perfectly well, yes. And it's not too loud and blingy, but it's still an exquisite diamond piece.
Correct. And done with a good jeweler, with a good name. Now, if you like buying brands, there's nothing better than a Patek, right, for a watch. Am I right?
You are right, yes. Because here you're combining the technical aspect of this happens to be a mechanical timepiece, the technical prowess of a watchmaker who then could make such a tiny movement that runs, to this day, it's still running perfectly.
So see, when you said mechanical, this was quite a few years, and I think what happened was when I first started the online auction, I had to sell some watches, and I didn't know the language to use. So mechanical means that you need to wind it.
You need to wind it up. It's time. Yeah. Normally for women, it's time only. We will show a complicated woman's watch later.
Right. You need to wind it up.
Normally, you just need to wind it up to get it going.
And so this is how I fell in love with men's watches, because they're automatic. And I thought, with the power reserve, that's even better. That's amazing. And I thought it was
then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I don't have to worry for a few days anyway. Yes. So I thought, how genius. How come they make better things for men than for women? How dare they? And that's how I started, on that journey.
So that's interesting. No, that's a very interesting point of view. Now, these little cocktail watches, this is from the 1950s, but they actually came out in the 1930s. During that period of the sort of Art Deco, in between wars, fun time, and it's very interesting that even still through the 1950s and 60s, actually, they were still making these tiny little pieces. And I feel quite strongly that these little pieces will come back. I mean, even someone as tall as me, I can wear a tiny piece. And actually, I've just acquired this little piece which I think is a very easy piece to wear every day.
Again, if you look from the profile, it's beautiful.
It's got that wonderful curvature of the sapphire.
It's very architectural, and
even something as small and simple as that is architectural.
Right. Yes. So it's an accent on your outfit again.
Yes.
Fashion these days isn't exactly very full of frills. More modern people don't look at us. There isn't a single frill between us. Rarely. And that little piece is sort of like a little sort of check mark that you actually have some sort of eye on design.
I love it. Yes, an eye on design. And that's very important point about all these watches. Everything is different. Everything you'll see today is different. Now look at this, Angelina. This is a unbelievable piece made by my personal favorite watch designer that Patek ever worked with, who is Gilbert Albert. And Gilbert Albert just made extraordinary pieces. He was a jeweler, and he joined Patek at the very young age of 25. He became head of the creative division at Patek. Can you believe it? But he was so talented that the then president, Henri Stern, could see the talent of this young man and let him go crazy. And he really did. And he's the one that brought out these asymmetrical pieces. I mentioned earlier that I'm wearing this, also a Gilbert Albert. It's a ricochet watch, which is just so tactile to feel and beautiful to feel.
It's the gold work that's important.
Yes, because he himself, first of all, he designed them.
It's the chasing.
But he would do this because he felt it was so important to physically make the piece.
Correct. So it's
different.
very sculptural, and most people don't realize that this is the hand chasing. So on this strap itself.
Now this bracelet is different again, isn't it?
It is.
So we're looking at some different golds here. It's very subtle. You can't see it probably from the camera looking at it now, but there's different coloured golds in here. And it's like a bark-like finish, isn't it?
It's alternating between bark and the like a satin finish and a shiny finish. So it's really quite beautiful. And I think most people don't realize gold work is actually very challenging. A lot of the jewelry that you buy, the more popular brands and iconic pieces are machine tooled. But this is not.
This is not machine tooled. Yeah, this is completely made by hand.
Yes, it's made by hand and it's unique. And that's why vintage is so special. Right. There's not a single one. You will have questions like, what an interesting piece you're wearing.
Yes. Right. And look at how he just scattered the emeralds and the diamonds.
Correct.
It looks as they're just put there willy-nilly, but if you look, there is actually a rhyme to the design.
Yeah.
But I was looking carefully trying to see the hallmark on this. Gilbert Albert worked with a lot of extraordinary bracelet makers. Gay Frère and is a well-known example. But he also worked with Ponte Gennari, who I think this is a Ponte Gennari. We will confirm that later when John's had a closer look at it. But Ponte Gennari was a long-established bracelet chain maker in Geneva. And especially during the 50s and 60s, if you had a Ponte Gennari bracelet on your watch, it actually had a significant added value to your watch.
I didn't know that. I learned something new every day.
So we see them from time to time, and I always think it's just really interesting how Patek would work with these different masters in their category. Because you mentioned, for example, earlier Georges Lafont.
Yeah.
So remind us who Georges Lafont was.
Georges Lafont, the firm actually started probably in the 1890s, and it's taken over by the son and the grandson and all that. But it's one of the most important jewelers, makers. They're not a brand itself, but they've become so well known. People who do know vintage go, oh, it's a Georges Lafont bracelet. And he has a name on itself, but it's really a little, if you come right down to it, it was originally a manufacturer of very fine gold work, and big houses, jewelry houses like Cartier and Van Cleef would use him.
I see. Now, it's very interesting because in the 1980s, Patek Philippe worked with Georges Lafont to make a series of zodiac necklaces for them in line with the Ellipse watches. And what I've done is I have one of those zodiac necklaces, but I've taken off the beautiful Georges Lafont chain to put with Gilbert Albert.
That's fine.
So I'm just mixing and matching here, but we can easily do that. So
but that's the thing with Patek. And I think for the people listening to the podcast, I would assume you own a Patek or want to. One of the great perks is you get this Patek magazine, which is I actually look forward to that because it's a great magazine because it really tells you historically how important the house is because of the content.
Right.
And in there, they feature really interesting artisanal workmanship of different genres, different
everything.
Categories.
Yes, not just jewelry or watches.
A few magazines ago, it was like a Japanese woodworker.
Yes.
So it was great. And I thought, you respect the art.
So that's exact. You've hit the nail on the head. You've said it beautifully, that Patek always respects the art of any craftsmanship. And so that's why they try and bring in and support and retain as many craftspeople as possible.
And I think that's why the watches retain value. I think John was very disapproving when I said, well, I've sold my Pateks because I buy other things. I have no sentimental attachment to my things because they are things. I haven't changed the husband, but I've changed watches and diamond, my wedding ring and all that. The husband still remains the same. But I've always made money or I've kept value in what I've sold in Patek.
Well, I don't want my husband to hear that because he keeps saying, why don't I sell our Pateks? And I'm like, no, because I get too attached to them.
So women should keep note of that.
But listen, it's just as much fun as you mentioned to change the watch that you're wearing, to change the look. I mean, and also we change ourselves, don't we?
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't have dreamt in a million years of buying a teeny tiny watch like this.
But it's adorable.
But it's so sweet, and it took ages and ages to find it. Yep. But I love it. And normally I would wear men's watches, but now I'm getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and now I've got the tiniest watch in the world.
It's very modern.
Not in the world, but
it's very modern because of the straps.
Yes, the cord.
Yes, the cord. A lot of jewelers have started using cords on their things.
So there you go. Now let's get back to jewelry. Let's get back to chain. Let's get back to your area. So here is a quintessential Patek. It's an ellipse. So we have the elliptical dial with the blued gold, 18-karat blued gold dial. And this is, interestingly, a man's watch originally. And it's actually what was, at the time, the largest ellipse that Patek made. It was even known as the jumbo ellipse. And it's 37 millimeters. So it's a good size, even on you, who is very petite.
Yes, I'm the world's tiniest wrist.
So look, there's a big watch on you, but it works now for women.
Absolutely.
And what's lovely about this is this mesh bracelet. Very
white
gold and diamonds. Tell us, I mean, feel the setting of those diamonds. I think they're so beautifully done.
It's beautifully set. You know, for bad jewelry, you can always tell because you could tear your skin
or tear your fabric. Yes.
Absolutely.
Worse.
Yes, worse. And in my appraising days at Christie's, there's sometimes when I'll just pick up a piece of jewelry and say, "Oh dear God," it's not a great piece of jewelry, and then. Sometimes I don't even have to look at it. I just have to pick it up and I'll know, oh, this must be special.
So tell me what you feel when you picked up that watch.
There's enough of a heft to know that it's important, to know that it's gold, but the mesh bracelet feels like butter.
Feels like butter.
Yes,
like
butter.
A fabric. Like a fabric,
like a
isn't
fabric.
It? And this, again, is completely handmade.
Oh, absolutely. The mesh bracelets were the best. It's very comfortable to wear. The good thing about a gold mesh bracelet is it's actually very sturdy and it can wear it for a long time.
Ah, interesting. So you meaning it's not going to stretch or something like that? Because people might think it might stretch because it's so flexible.
No, not really. And it just stays very well. Sometimes you have to clean a stainless steel bracelet, but never with gold.
Oh, true. Yes. So
I think you know that.
So here we have, that's a good example of a man's watch. And here is something that you have seen before. We met up in Las Vegas when we were both there recently. But I had to bring this again because
I'm obsessed by this.
I just think that this is one of the most beautiful watches I've ever seen. And it's completely unlike any other Patek we've ever seen, except it has some nods to Patek. Obviously, it's got the blued gold dial, as we see in the Ellipse collection. But it is it's an extraordinary shape. It's quite a large dial.
70s, is it?
That's actually from the mid-70s. That's from the mid-70s.
Yeah.
Yes, mid-70s.
Because that's what the jewelry was like. There's a lot of during that period that there was something people like to set the stones and then right around like a tutu. They'll have the fanning out of the baguettes.
Right.
And they used to call that a ballerina setting.
So that's what a ballerina setting means. Oh, gosh, I've learned today.
Yep. So I love the work. I mean, again, beautifully done. And these are all cut according, you can actually take each little tiny diamond and cut it according to shape. Sort of like when I had to order an eternity band, right? You want to fit it exactly. They can shave little bits on it. And this is what they had to do to make sure everything is tight and close together.
So it's very interesting because looking at that as a jeweler and looking at the craftsmanship and the level of craftsmanship that's gone into that, it's unexpected in a watch, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's that added level of care that is very unusual because they take pride. Obviously, they take great pride. And there are clients, important Patek lady clients, who would want this watch and expect that same level of craftsmanship for the jewelry and for their watches.
So there you go. That's summed up why Patek has always taken its jeweled pieces so seriously, because it knows its clientele are looking for the very, very best.
Oh, absolutely.
And they can't cut any corners, and people will see if they have. So every as in this instance, every single baguette was set for this particular piece. And here we're looking at something that's not in that quite big, hefty, important piece of jewelry level, but here's something that could be worn every day. And it's an elliptical shape. It's not an ellipse, but elliptical shape. Pretty little watch. Again, with a very lovely, very flexible, soft fabric-like bracelet.
It's like a chain bracelet.
So it's very easy to wear.
Yeah.
And very comfortable, which I think is important with watches. You don't necessarily want something that's going to flop around too much. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like wearing larger bracelet watches sometimes, but I think every day we like things that are easy to wear.
Oh, yeah. And this one will sit very well on the wrist.
Sit very well. And again, tiny little diamonds and an onyx dial just to give it a little lift and look a little bit different.
And this is important too. I mean, a lot of times fashion has changed so much so that you don't necessarily wear the same kind of clothes you used to wear 10 years ago even.
Right.
So, you wear a plain shirt and a nice pair of trousers or a nice skirt and then have a nice bag, but then you have earrings, a piece of jewelry, but you need to also have a nice important watch on your wrist. And one of the things that's very important for me as well is the reason why I use a watch is because I don't want to fiddle with my phone to look at the time.
Well, especially when you live in a city.
Yes.
And you don't want to be doing that.
No.
You just want to quickly see what the time is.
Correct. It's very functional. I know it's very practical, but that's what it is. I mean, especially for people in a meeting.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, it used to be considered extremely rude to look at what time it was.
Yes, but you can do it more discreetly with a watch.
But you can just have a quick glance down and see what's going on.
Correct. I love this watch. This is great for a warm day.
And an everyday watch. I mean, not as quite as big as the baguette one, but now here's something completely different again.
I love this.
So this is a lapis lazuli decorated bracelet. It's more like a cuff, isn't it?
It's like a cuff bracelet.
And
this I see somebody wearing it with denim.
Yes, just with jeans.
And a white shirt or something.
Very simple, but
so great.
Then a stunning piece on their wrist.
Correct.
Yes.
And this is something that will pop. So
the color pops for sure.
For sure. And sometimes you just can't find that right sort of bracelet or the bangle, and with jewelry, sometimes it's just too much. But with a watch, it's always like a great sort of little line underneath. It's important. You know when the woman is properly dressed, she'll have a nice watch on.
So I love that. You'll know when a woman is properly dressed, she'll have a nice watch on. Beautiful, beautiful. That should be a tagline for an ad or something.
They do. I find it horrifying sometimes. They don't know their time. They pick up their giant phone and it's.
Yes, anyway, that's a very good practical point there, Angelina.
Yes.
Now, here we have something we're not going to spend too much time on, but Nautiluses for men have become the must-have watch. It's a sports watch, and especially in steel, it's very, very popular with men. The prices have gone up to the roof. They've come down a bit, thank goodness, because they were hugely high prices. But what we've seen now, which I think is quite interesting, is more women wearing this, which was actually made for a man, but it's what was called a boy size.
Yes.
So it's a little bit smaller than the more traditional 37, 38 inch Nautilus. This is 32 inches, so it's small, but it was a man's watch in the 80s. And now here it is in gold, which is a lovely ladies' watch is what we've seen it become much more worn by women.
Should I cry right now? Because I remember quite a few years ago, this was the option. It was a watch or a piece of jewelry. I know. I have lived to regret that piece of jewelry. Instead of buying the Nautilus.
Yes, okay. So you're saying you could have bought yourself a Nautilus when they were affordable.
Well, yes. And I said, well, another watch. I had so many watches at that point in time. I was like, oh God, another watch. And so
that's funny.
Do not bring this up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Let's
move swiftly away then from these bracelet pieces, and let's go to the more traditional Patek Philippe watches that people think of when they think of a Patek, which is normally a round Calatraa on a strap. Mm-hmm. Now, here we have 5 pieces. 2 of them were made for women, specifically made for women. Having said that, any of them could be worn by men or women. And funnily enough, this piece here, this little Calatraa, both John and I were working at Patek Philippe, and it was so funny. I'll never forget John saying, Tania, that's a watch that you should get. And I said, well, I haven't really thought about a Calatraa because I already had one, which I'm going to come to in a second. He said, no, this is great, and it's the most fantastic size for a woman. And he was absolutely right. And I've worn this. This is one of my favourite watches. It's so easy to wear. Just a very simple gold Calatraa. You can't go wrong. Now that is a good example of a watch we could share. I could share with my husband.
Correct.
If I was kind enough to let him borrow it.
No, don't. Well, yes, you're allowed to share.
I borrow his watches, but he's not allowed to borrow mine.
But it's interesting that what you say about sharing and women collecting watches.
Yes.
I have to say, I know of 2 couples who share their watches.
I love it.
Fortunately for her, when big watches came into vogue, that's when they go shopping together. They go acquire watches together and they swap watches. I mean, ultimately, they have to share that ridiculous large watch winder, right? Which is annoying.
Right. For their automatic self-winding watches.
Yes.
That you love so much, that type of movement.
Yes. But so they do share watches. Of course, she has particularly feminine watches with diamonds that he refuses to wear.
Right.
Because he's just like, all right, that's what my father used to do. But I think that might come back too.
I think, we have noticed, John and I have noticed that men are buying more diamond pieces. Again.
We need to lean on
Pharrell. We know that they used to wear them.
Yes.
Well, it's funny you should say that because talking of men's diamond watches, this was made for a man. And it's your favourite automatic movement, which you can see through the sapphire crystal at the back. And it's an evening watch for a man, hence the diamonds. That would be when a man would wear diamonds if he's wearing a tuxedo and he's going out. Nowadays, if you feel like wearing diamonds, just wear diamonds, I say. But it's just, again, it's another perfect size for a woman or a man. Now, this is a great sharing watch.
Yeah.
Actually. If a man felt that he could wear such a piece in the evening, and I think he will. I think he will.
I think you can, especially for dressier occasions. I mean, the men used to do that.
Yes,
it's just
absolutely.
funny that they've stopped.
It's just a trend that's changed, but it could just as easily come back, couldn't it?
Absolutely.
Now, we mentioned earlier about complicated watches because it was always thought that women were not interested in complications. And when I say a complication, I mean something other than telling you the time.
Right.
So I'm holding here in my hand a reference 4864, which was in fact the first complicated watch that Patek made for women in a series. And they did make women some complicated watches like one-off pieces, but then this started and it's what's called a dual time. And it'd be very useful for someone like you who goes between New York and Singapore.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's very easy to change. You just have to press the button.
That would have been my next purchase. That's on the agenda.
It is on the agenda. I'm very pleased to hear it.
Yes, it is on the agenda. I need that dual time. I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? The things we say. I suppose, I don't collect handbags. I prefer watches and jewelry. Handbags have no interest for me at all. I guess it's the same as somebody saying, I need that taupe-colored bag in that crocodile skin or something. So I need a dual time.
You do need, you do. You're an international jet setter. You do need a jet.
Hardly.
So we also spoke earlier about shaped watches. And I thought that this was a rather fun one to look at in terms of shape. So this is sort of an ellipse on its side, a horizontal ellipse, if you like. But what a funky shape.
It's what we would call, and I didn't wear my ring today, it's an east-west setting.
An east-west setting.
So when you have an oval-shaped diamond, traditionally you always wear it elongated, like set like that.
Yes.
I like mine set east-west. Like an emerald cut too.
Right,
I like my emerald cut set east-west.
Yes,
So this is an east-west setting.
I love that.
Kind of like that diamond watch there.
Yes, absolutely. Like the one with the baguettes that we looked at earlier. Yes, no, that is different. And then, funnily enough, here we're going back to a smaller watch just to finish off here. And this is a 4860 Calatraa, reference 4860. And funnily enough, this was the first Patek Philippe that I ever bought myself.
Oh.
So it's very precious to me. And then I got a 24 and I only wore my 24 for 20 years. But and I was looking and I looked at this watch and I thought, I love this watch, but how can I make it more modern? And the way I made it more modern, or maybe more interesting, was to put it on this Hermes type band.
I love it.
And it's changed it, hasn't it?
Yes.
It's made it completely different.
It's made it very new and of the moment.
Very new and off the moment. And a very simple thing to do, to just put on that double strap and change it. And I think that that's something that it's worth remembering, isn't it? That with watches, you can update them if you feel you need to update them. But overall, I think it's important also to respect them just how they are, that they're individual works of art, don't you think? Like a piece of jewelry, really.
Right. I mean, listen, when you have strap watches like this, it's very easy to change the tone of it. So, for example, this watch was on a satin strap.
Oh, it was?
It was on a satin strap. And I decided, all right, this is ridiculous. A satin strap is...
Not practical in the city.
Not practical in the city, but and people, I'm the kind of person who would wear diamonds night and day. I don't care. So satin was always traditionally for evening.
Yes.
And my 24 was on a satin strap as well.
How fabulous. Yes, I remember those 24s on satin straps.
That was a gorgeous watch. But when I changed the strap, I decided, okay, forget the satin. This is, I'm going to go for a band, a leather band. And you can always change the color of it. So the look of the watch will change completely with the color as well.
Completely with the color. And we're seeing people do that so much more nowadays. And even Patek in its modern watches, are putting them on completely different colored straps and using different colored dials and that sort of thing. So we're definitely seeing that. And so, I mean, just in summary now, I mean, I could carry on asking you questions forever and ever and ever, that's for sure. But I think what I've found just from this conversation with you is that there's no definitive answer, is there, as to what a woman wants in a watch? Would you say? I think the point is, be open-minded, look at all these different kinds of watches that you can buy. Don't think that you have to just buy a watch that was made for women. You can buy a watch that was made for a man.
Correct.
And vice versa for men. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. We've seen men wearing women's watches now.
Oh,
which
absolutely.
I love.
Absolutely.
Love that fact.
Now, you're wearing that 24 that was probably one of the most popular watches for women.
Yes. And it still is today Patek's #1 selling wristwatch. Isn't that interesting?
Interesting. So when I first saw it, it must have been 15 years ago. Is that possible?
And it's more than 15. It was 1995, 96 that it came out.
So I almost bought that watch, but I opted not to. I can't remember what I bought in the end. I didn't buy the stainless steel. I bought a white gold. I'm really into the gold.
Yes,
watches.
well, you're a jeweler, so you're going to prefer gold. But this is it's interesting that you brought this up, Angelina, because I was working with Patek at the time, and again, as I started off this conversation today, we had such a challenge of trying to get ladies to pay attention to Patek. It was always a man's watch. A woman would buy a Patek for her male partner, but what can we do? How can we make a watch that women will want? And the one thing that this 24 did was it offered, and hence its name, 24, which really means 24 hours a day.
Correct.
That a woman can wear it. She puts it on in the morning. It's steel. She can wear it to the gym. She can take the kids to school, do whatever around the house or garden. It's practical. It's water resistant. But the little nod of diamonds on it means that it can also be worn in the evening to a cocktail party. So she doesn't have to take it off. Rather like you, Angelina, she could have slept in it too.
Correct. That's absolutely correct. That's what I do with my stainless steel watches.
I love it. Yes, you don't have to take it off, and it's quartz, so you don't have to wind it. Now, of course, there's 24s, funnily enough, with the automatic movement that you so love. That's now available for the 24, and as is a high complication, a perpetual calendar. So for women now in modern timepieces, there are these very complicated timepieces available, but they come with enormous price points as well. And so I think something that is to remind people that if you look at vintage, you're going to find real value for money. That these are priced well under what a modern equivalent would be. And especially if you're going to start looking at the jewellery pieces, wouldn't you agree with that? Because jewelled pieces now cost a fortune, don't they?
Fortune, absolutely. And this is my point. This was the most successful watch that they had. It's stainless steel.
Stainless steel. So that helps the price point.
Correct.
But it's also a practical metal.
Yes, but so is gold. Gold is a very practical metal. In fact, gold wears better than stainless steel.
Now that is interesting. That is interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, I have to admit, I have had this polished a few times, and it got to the point where the polisher said, "No, I'm not going to do it for you anymore. There won't be anything left." And I was like, "But I like it shiny."
So if you're wearing this, you could foreseeably wear that and that one as well. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
It's the same ilk. They have diamonds. They're
yes.
white.
No, you're absolutely right, Angelina. That we see this 24 as being a very casual watch.
Right.
But you've made the exact correct point.
So I take the subway.
It's not that much difference from one of these other ones. Yes,
absolutely.
You take the subway.
I take the subway, and I used to wear my white gold with diamonds watch on the subway, and nobody knew.
Nobody knew, so no one's going to try and steal it.
No.
I mean, I say that now, and something's probably going to happen. But I wore this for 20 years on the subway and felt totally confident that I could wear it because nobody knew what it was.
Correct.
And nobody was going to try and steal it from me.
And that's the great thing about a Patek watch. A lot of times, especially with the
as long as you're not wearing a Nautilus.
Right.
Don't wear a Nautilus on the subway.
Nautilus. Well, even then, I would. I suppose I'm kind of fearless.
You're a real New Yorker, that's what.
Yeah, I'm a New Yorker. I can wear a Nautilus. I'm not too afraid of that. You know, if you have a Calatraa or anything like that, you could wear it anywhere and nobody's going to know. The person who would know would know.
Would know. And I think that you've said the most wonderful thing about what Pateks are all about. Only you know.
Yeah.
And I think that pleasure is a very personal, private thing.
Correct.
And a wonderful thing. And also, you feel dressed, to your point that you made at the beginning.
Yes. I
love that feeling.
I feel bad. This is very Singapore, right? So because it's raging hot every day.
Yes.
I mean, everything is air conditioned, but yet there is a certain casualness to everything, except for the watches.
Interesting.
Except for the watches. You can see the man walking in. I mean, sometimes you go to the club and the poor man has to take off his flip-flops and go into a pair of slip-on boat shoes, but he'll be wearing the most important watch on his wrist. But so they want to say, I am thinking about what I'm doing. I put on a proper watch, even though the weather is not allowing me to put on a proper shirt with a tie. I'm dressed.
Right. Well, you're dressed. No matter what Patek you wear, you're dressed, or any fine timepiece. I think that's a wonderful way to explain the difference between wearing just a regular any watch to something that is an investment. Absolutely, we're not pretending otherwise. It is totally an investment. And it's been so wonderful to hear you as a jewelry specialist and expert talk about this, help us understand how some of these pieces were made, why they're important, as well as something very simple. And I love the fact that you love this simple thing.
Oh, it's so adorable.
So adorable, isn't
gorgeous.
it?
And it's very of the moment because, as I said, a lot of the 20-something, they are very, very tiny chains.
Yes,
tiny stacked chains. So this is perfect.
It's perfect. So I'm just saying, we keep hearing that smaller watches are coming back. We are in the vintage world seeing, definitely seeing men not be worried about wearing a 32, 34, or even, dare I say, 36, as big as that, size watch. thank goodness, because now it's opened up this enormous opportunity for everybody. And I think that the same is for women.
Oh, for sure. So I'm looking forward to that day.
Yeah, thank you. Well, all we know is that whatever women want will remain an eternal mystery. But thank you, Angelina, for your wonderful advice. And thank you for listening. And if you liked this podcast, please like and subscribe, as we would not want you to miss another opportunity to learn about Patek Philippe. So this is Tania Edwards for Collectability. Thank you.